You deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual, zealous wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm your host, and I'm looking forward to today. I've got a guest I'll introduce here shortly, but I'm in a different location. I'm actually in Washington State. Actually, my guest is also as well, which is kind of ironic and weird, but we're on the different total opposite sides of the states of Washington State right now. I'm out in Spokane, Washington, and she's out in Gig Harbor, Washington, which I've been at as well. Super cool area. We'll definitely maybe share a little bit of information about that area because it's super cool. I got some friends that live in that area as well, and one's a foot doctor. He's a podiatrist. So one of my old high school classmates. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But yeah, so I had an interesting weekend. My daughter got married this weekend, so I was up in Pittsburgh. He's from Pittsburgh area, but they're going to be living in St. Augustine, which is just south of Jacksonville, where we're all at. So yeah, it was an amazing weekend. It went flawlessly. It was perfect. Everything went as according to plan, and my daughter was all beautiful. Of course, we all as proud fathers that have our daughters married off. We're very emotional. I'll say that, man. I didn't think the 2 words into my speech at the dinner rehearsal, and I was already in tears. I'm like, wow. Didn't realize how hard this was going to be, but just because all the memories you see and they kind of pop up as you're talking a little bit, and it's just a lot of fun, and his side of the family is a lot of cool people, and very athletic and health conscious, which I love too. So very, very awesome family for her to be involved in, and it was just a cool thing. Plus, I went to a Pittsburgh Pirates baseball game. I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I like any professional sports live. I think it's really cool just to kind of see what these athletes are all about. And I played obviously in the NFL for a while, and so I know that it's really important for people to watch my games live, and so I really like to support teams when I can, and just say I've been there, the Cleveland, but Pittsburgh Pirate Stadium and so forth. It's a PNC Bank Stadium, but really cool setting, and right downtown Pittsburgh, pretty close to the actual Three Rivers, I used to call it. I don't even know what it's called anymore. It was Heinz Field, something else now, but where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. Brought back some memories driving by that place as well, back when I played against them, of course. But getting into like health and wellness and so forth, we're definitely, the whole aspect and concept of this platform is to give people better, a control and idea of what they can do with their bodies. And speaking of control, it's more like our guest is going to share a lot about how we as humans need to have a little bit more control and responsibility for ourselves with regards to our health and wellness. I've always talked about being disciplined. I grew up, as a football player. It's accountability is incredibly important. Discipline, respect, all that stuff. Fill in the blank. Incredibly important to do. And so you kind of, have to kind of treat that as well within your whole, your own wellness journey. One of the things that I really like to refer to is just my personal experience of how crummy I felt, when I was out of shape and just not really, because I've been, like I said, listeners, you've known watching the show for a while, you've known my past as far as all the yo-yo things that I'd done with, not working out, being lazy, getting overweight and out of shape and my back hurting and so forth. So, having that control over it, and understanding really, again, get into like more of a faith-based opportunity as well. And that's what our guest also is going to share a little bit about her journey. And how do you tie faith-based, wellness into your normal lifestyle, and how does that ring about, and I think it has a lot to do with, I'm real big into the faith and Christianity clearly, but also with kicking and anytime you're trusting a process, you have to have faith in the process. And that's, you guys have listened and heard that many times from me as a kicking coach. I always really instilled that in my kickers is you really got to trust the process that I'm teaching you to do all the work for you. And you think about, trusting and having faith in any sort of program or any sort of weight loss or any sort of health regiment that hopefully holistic health coaches can throw on you. I definitely I'm not a big fan of the traditional, pharmaceutical route. Those are just Band-Aids. They don't do you much good. And there's reasons why, we won't get into all that detail, but you guys all understand and know my concept behind that. So without further ado, let's take a quick commercial break. When we get back, I'll introduce Sharon to you, and we'll go from there.
It is possible. It's different this time. I'm showing up for myself because now I know that weight isn't about effort alone. It's not just calories in, calories out. For years, the world told us it was simple. Eat less, move more, try harder. But science has shown us it's more complex than that. It's a real metabolic condition. That's where GLP-3 comes in. Powered by MBC267, a naturally derived peptide complex discovered in salmon from the Norwegian Sea and select mushrooms. GLP-3 works with the body's own system to help manage appetite and support metabolic balance. No fighting your body, no forced outcomes, just support where it actually matters. Because when you address the real factors at play, progress feels possible. I'm becoming the best version of myself. This is me and GLP-3.
And welcome back. So I have Sharon Lemoine. She is a nurse practitioner, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Gig Harbor Concierge Medicine and Gig Harbor Medical Spa. With more than 30 years in healthcare, Sharon shares how her experiences with type 1 diabetes, thyroid cancer, surgical menopause, and difficult preventative health decisions shaped her mission to help others take ownership of their well-being. Sharon believes true wellness extends beyond managing symptoms. It requires proactive care, personal responsibility, strong relationships, and attention to the body, mind, and spirit. Some of the subjects we'll probably cover today would be hormone optimizations in women's health, also functional medicine and preventative care, medically guided weight loss and peptide therapy, possibly. We'll talk about the connection between faith and wellness. That's one of the big bullet points. I really want to make sure we do cover quite a bit with that. Provider burnout and limitations of corporate healthcare. That's a good one. Restoring meaningful provider-patient relationships, entrepreneurship, and independent medical practice, and also turning personal adversity into purpose. Sharon, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to dig into all of that.
Yeah. Well, first tell us a little bit about Gig Harbor. How's that over there? That place is beautiful. So amazing.
Oh, I tell you, we've been here 15 years. We moved from Southern California, and we have not looked back. We pinch ourselves every day. It is God's country. If you have not been to the Pacific Northwest, specifically Gig Harbor, I highly recommend it. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been out there a couple of the summers. My buddy Nick, who's out there as well, and been on his boat, and it's surreal. People don't have an idea. You're right that close to like Mount Rainier and all the mountains. And it's just incredible atmosphere. But and of course, having the ability to enjoy that and being out in nature. During the times, summer times obviously are my favorite, but anytime during the year out there in that area. But, we want to be healthy as individuals and to enjoy, life in general and just the wilderness. And I'm a huge fan of grounding. I'm in shorts and flip-flops all day long in Jacksonville. I've become a beach bum, of course, but I love the grounding. I love the sunshine. There's a lot of things about sunshine that people were getting lied to, and we can have a whole nother episode about that, but sunshine is good for you within moderation, right? Grounding is obviously real important as well. So Sharon, tell us a little bit about your experience in any aspect you want to cover first. I definitely the faith in wellness and so forth. How do you tie those two together?
Yeah, no, it's been a very interesting path. I've always been a believer, and my medical career has, taken me through many different experiences. I had a passion for emergency medicine. I worked 18 years as a nurse, went back and got my nurse practitioner license, worked as an independent provider in emergency medicine. And I really thought that's where my career was going to end. And, I always refer back to God having a plan, and he's going to certainly, send you that way. And in the state of Washington, once I got my nurse practitioner license, I could work independently. And so I dabbled a little bit with opening up my own aesthetic practice. And my plan was to work full-time in ER and do this on the side. And I quickly realized my passion really was health and wellness, and that's really where I wanted my attention to be. And, the backstory is navigating my whole health history myself really has brought in another layer of perspective for myself and my patients. And so the medical practice has grown into a full faith-based functional practice, primary care, specializing in weight loss and hormone therapy. I'm very proud of the work we're doing it. We're doing it correctly and really helping people, empower them to really take control of their health. So really that's my message, is using your faith for that motivation and purpose, and then really knowing and helping my patients be educated on how much control they really have over their health now and 20, 30 years down the road.
Yeah, it's challenging for anybody really, and we need that extra boost of confidence really, because it can be very, very challenging for a lot of people, especially when you're talking about changing a lifestyle. You've been eating kind of junky food all your life, and getting into more of a healthier eating lifestyle is a lot more difficult than one might think. But I always talk about the hump. You get over that hump, and the challenge is going up that hill to get to the top of that little hump. And once you're there and you realize, hey, this isn't so bad, then it's just downhill from there as far as a good way downhill, to kind of get back into your routine and kind of learn, and especially when you start feeling the difference in
Absolutely.
So how does that affect more specifically the women? So we talked about, I think we're going to share a little bit about your women's health. Like what kind of stuff do you gear towards women versus like just the general population?
Yeah, it's been interesting. When I first introduced weight loss, middle-aged women coming into my office, and their story was exactly the same. And that really was eye-opening to me, because I felt the same way. And sometimes they were coming in with maybe just 10 or 20 pounds and really sitting in across from me, tearful, feeling defeated, not feeling validated by their prior providers. And medically, I realized there was a whole nother layer to this than just that extra 10 pounds. And as my education continued in the functional-based medicine arena, I started learning more and more about hormone therapy and introduced it into my practice. And that has gravitated even more women into the practice. And then, yes, I treat men as well, because I treat the women, and then the husbands come back a couple months later saying, now I got to keep up with her. And they see how well their wives and spouses are thriving, and their mental health, their physical health, their motivation. So it's quite rewarding to help these women who are tearful and defeated, coming back 2-3 months later saying, I feel like myself again. And it warms my heart to see how confident they are, especially as those kids are getting a little bit older, going off to college. A lot of women are coming in and finally saying, oh my gosh, I've been a caretaker. I've been taking care of my husband and my kids and maybe my elderly parents. And I'm at a point in my life where I know I'm at a fork in the road. I have to make a change to continue getting through day to day, but to look in the future of where my health is going to be. So, women are coming in with a whole array of symptoms: fatigue, irritability, the obvious low sex drive, just the sleep issues. Sleep is quite common, and a lot of women don't realize sleep is one of the first things to go, and sometimes the easiest to treat. Coming from my side of things. And I definitely felt the same thing going through surgical menopause at 47 and not being on any hormones for about 5 years. Another God thing. I was able to walk in those shoes and really relate to my patients. And so I completely understand how they feel. And to show them now that, I'm in my mid-50s and in the best health of my life, I feel like I can set that example for them. And, that's another big message I have for other healthcare providers out there. We have that responsibility to set an example. And like you had mentioned earlier, building trust in your healthcare provider. You got to walk the walk. You got to talk the talk, and you're there to hold their hand and live that experience with them. And so that's what we've really established in our practice, and very proud of the work we're doing.
Yeah. That's good. You mentioned. I'm going to recap a little bit of what you said as far as the partnership. The spouse, the couples. That's I always talk about, like having an accountability partner. I think that's a great idea. You want to shoot for, go in with another person. So you both are, maybe dying at first, like, oh man, this is horrible, but then you push each other and help each other.
Yeah, no, that's huge. If you've got, a spouse that wants to hop on board with you, a best friend, we, in our practice, we're just implementing a complete wellness program that encompasses a in-house gym. So not only can we talk about your spiritual wellness and your medical layers of health, but I can make sure that you're going to be working out 3 days a week and doing it properly and assisted with a trainer. And whether you have that accountability spouse or partner or best friend doing it with you, that's huge to have those relationships.
Yeah. Did you ever run into people that, would say they're just too busy to work out? I've come across some people like that as well. And again, I always explain it, hey, it's a lifestyle change. You have to make room for it. How much time do you spend on watching TV? How much time do you spend doing like just things that you are just, killing time basically? Those are, again, and that's the other thing too, that people don't realize, like working out, you don't have to work out in the gym for an hour, 2 hours, whatever. Most of the workouts I do are literally just 45 minutes long.
Yep.
And I know that I can get my butt kicked in 30 minutes. I know that for a fact. It's not that hard.
I've had that conversation when I am talking with women who are like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I'm like, look, get a pair of dumbbells and go out in your garage in your pajamas for 20 minutes in the morning before you hop in the shower. If you do it right, if you lift some heavy weights for 20 minutes, I guarantee you're going to be sore the next day, and it's a great building block. And then after a couple of weeks, you're actually out of your pajamas and you put some workout clothes and a good pair of shoes on, and then you might do 30 minutes. You're not, I tell my patients, you don't have to be a bodybuilder, but it's amazing in a very short amount of time that you get up 30 minutes earlier, right? 3 days a week, just start there. And what's interesting is once you start doing it, not only the physical changes, but that mental space that you get in, you think better, you sleep better, you're happier through the day. They've done studies on anxiety and depression and just what physical activity does to our mental health. You're more productive and sharp at work. So, I've never had anybody say, I really hated the fact that I got up and I feel horrible because I worked out today. Like, they feel good. They're really building their confidence in that process. And so it's never too late to start, and you can start with just a little bit and it goes so far.
Yeah. That's what I've always said is like, once you get into that routine and having that once you start feeling better, and I speak myself personally, is the fact that I do it, for setting an example, like you said as well. My chronological age, according to Human Health scale, of course, is 41, and I'm 54. So I'm like, that's awesome. I actually do feel younger than 41, to be honest with you, but that's just, I love that feeling, and it's addictive. And that's where I want everybody to understand, like, your health is important, and it really is. And I think that, when you get addicted to it, you'll be glad you did. And that's what you were saying before, like, the hardest part of starting a fitness program and a daily routine of that is showing up at the gym. Once you're there, once you start working out, man, you just forget about all that. You just go for it. Right. And then of course with the nutrition, things like that. And it takes a little time to kind of get used to and accustomed to a new way of eating, essentially. And then also, practice wellness supplements even, and just things that you can add to. What kind of things do you recommend for people when they're on a weight loss journey, as far as like you recommend peptides? Do you recommend like any kind of different modalities? What do you got?
Oh my gosh, I've got it all. And I get so excited about everything. I can overwhelm my new patients. We usually will start with blood work, very comprehensive workup. And then they come back, we sit down, and usually all of them need some sort of oral supplementation. We live in a toxic world. We're all deficient on so many different elements. So we get them started on that, and then we can start talking about hormone optimization. And what's interesting is my women that come in perimenopause, menopause states, their symptom list is very similar to other diagnoses, like an underfunctioning thyroid, like a vitamin deficiency, an overload of cortisol. So we have to be very thorough with our workup and where we decide or what lane we're going to take and what we're going to address. But the hormone therapy for men, I mean, it's easy, testosterone, right? And giving them the options, watching them closely, not having them overdo it, because, I can give them a decent dose and they come back and they're like, man, I felt like a rock star. Do that again. And I'm like, well, okay, your numbers were a little high. We got to turn it down, keep it safe. And same thing for women. But it doesn't take much, it's just a little sprinkle of each hormone can take you so far. And then now you've got that little bit of motivation and that little bit of energy to really put the work in of showing up for that workout or, having a food plan. It was interesting as you were talking, I look at things, with faith and medicine. You can take an easy road or you can take a really hard road. There's only two ways to do this, right? You can be a believer and see the positivity that follows and makes your life so much more fulfilled and be in a grateful space, or not and struggle and really just struggle. And same thing with your health. Two roads, right? You can do the work and feel amazing, or choose not to. And it's just so many bumps in the road and so overwhelming. Who doesn't want that easier road? You just have to dip your toe in that pond and really start doing a little bit of work at a time, both in your mental state and your faith, and on the physical side. I'm telling you, there will be no regret.
Yeah. And bringing up faith again,
Yeah.
My guy, I have a kicking coach by the name of Jim Gattano. He grew up here in Spokane as well. He's very, very disciplined with regards to what he eats. He's very, very good eater. And he's always tried to stick with like a lot of the alkaline diet type of things. And he got all that information literally from the Bible. He's got his own little alkaline diet that he hands out to everybody he sees. It all came straight out of the Bible. And I love that. That's so perfect. And obviously there's reasons for it, as far as why we want to eat those kind of foods and stay the way we are. So you find that as well, like with regards to, actually, I want to ask you a little bit more about optimization, like the hormone optimization. Do you deal with like the epigenetics part of it too? Like, is there more, you deal with things that regulate your genes up and down?
I know there's more and more research coming about that. It's really interesting to dive into that, and it's interesting because I have a lot of patients that come in and they're like, well, this is just my genetics. It's type 2 diabetes is genetics. I'm like, well, is it, or is it a cultural thing? Are we following those cultures that cause the type 2 diabetes because grandma and grandpa had it and mom and dad had it and now you have it? We got to really differentiate genetics and culture. And so a lot of times patients do take a step back and think, oh yeah, my culture is to have rice in every meal. And when I tell them to take rice out, they look at me like my head is spinning around. They don't know any better, right? But then when I break it down and say, look, genetically you might be predisposed, but that is a very small percent of the control that you actually do have. So it's very interesting. I've had my epigenetics done by I see one of the head doctors from BioT, and he was like, yeah, your genes are not that great. I'm like, well, okay, on top of my type 1 diabetes and all the other things. But I've never felt more in control because I'm not going to let that define my health outcome. So yeah, it's interesting, the epigenetics. I continue to learn more about it, but I still cannot stress enough that do not roll over to that genetic diagnosis because you're missing out.
Right. How do you, with regards to, I love this whole control thing, and I think that's a subject I want to stick on because I think it is very, it's common with me, of course, having the discipline when I grew up as a kicker, and we have to be, mentally kind of strong and be willing to put some work in, even though, it might be a little difficult or whatever, but we just have to embrace the suck, which I've always talked about. Like, hey, listen, if you want to, good things in life only come when you embrace the suck. I mean, really, sometimes it is, but you get over that hump and it's kind of smooth sailing from there. But do you focus a lot on that whole control aspect, don't you?
I really do. Two things that come to mind. I've told this story many times. I was 31 years old. I always lived a very healthy lifestyle. I played sports growing up. At a very young age, I was watching my dietary intake. And so when I got my diagnosis at 31 as a type 1 diabetic, I really felt that was unfair. I thought, what is going on? I don't deserve this, right? And I started to run with some fellow nurses in the emergency room they were these big time runners. They'd come into our 7 o'clock shift in the morning. They're like, oh yeah, I ran 10 miles this morning. I'm like, how in the world did you even have time to do that? And I thought that was so interesting. And so I was really trying to find some sense of control over my health after my diagnosis. So I started to run with them. And 13 months later, I did a marathon. And my mantra the entire time I was training is, I will be in control. And I distinctly remember going over that finish line at that marathon and just breaking down, because I knew at that point, diabetes was not going to define me. And so that was a big takeaway. The other recent takeaway I've had is I was sitting with patients and I'm telling them all the things to do. Get your sleep, drink plenty of fluids, your supplements, their protein intake, measure your muscle mass. Like, this is a lot. And I really had to take a step back and think, okay, what is motivating us to do this? I've had my struggles with my health. I've lived in the medicine field, and I have a lot of different motivating factors. And I had to think, am I doing this for the right reasons? And for me, I stepped back and thought, okay, hang on. Is it nice to fit into those skinny jeans and see that number on the scale? Sure. And that's okay. But I need to make number one priority honoring this gift God has given me and steward this body, because if I am not healthy, I can't go out there and do the work I'm meant to do. And when I've reframed that for myself, it certainly has been resonated with my patients, because I start to talk about, peptides and hormone therapy, and they start to glaze over. And I'm like, okay, let me back it up a little bit. Let's just ask the reason why. Why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing it for your spouse. You shouldn't be doing it for you. You should be doing it for yourself, number one. We all have external motivators. When I was diagnosed at 31, my youngest child was just under 2. And my experience at the bedside, I had seen type 1 diabetics in 20 years, and I had seen how their health was failing them. They were on dialysis. They had significant cardiovascular disease. And I did not know where I was going to be and if I was going to be able to see my kids grow up. And I hit my 20-year mark and thought, man, I'm doing okay. And now I've got grandbabies, and now I want to see those grandbabies grow up. And so those are all great external motivators. But really, when I took a step back and said, I want to steward this body that God gave me, whether it is perfect or imperfect, I'm not going to sit here and tell God he's wrong and why did you make me diabetic? He's got a plan. He's going to use that. I have some obese patients that are struggling to find their confidence, to find their purpose. And I keep telling them, you don't know where this story ends. Use your faith, get through this challenge, and go help somebody that's struggling the same way you are. And that's how God works, right? As women especially, we're so critical of our bodies. Oh, I don't like my big butt or my crooked nose or whatever it may be. But again, are you going to stand there and tell God he screwed up the way he made you? Embrace it. There's a reason, even if it's minor, there is a reason you were created, and you have to honor that body. And to have that as your motivating factor, everything else just falls into place.
That's very well said. That's so perfect, and that's one thing you think about the milestones you reach when you start your journey and you start feeling better. You get these points of your journey where you've succeeded, and that's really obviously very motivating for yourself to keep going and everything like that. But that's one thing I think people don't even realize when they want to make the change for themselves. They want to do good and all this, but they don't realize. When they start making these changes, how good they're going to feel about making those changes. Yeah. It's an eye-opening experience when you really know the difference between feeling poor and out of shape. And my biggest takeaway, a key point in one of my couple of journeys when I was a little overweight was I was huffing and puffing, struggling to tie my shoes. And I'm like, I'm a retired professional athlete, and I'm sitting here at the age of whatever it was, in my 30s even, I think, maybe it was probably 40s. But I'm literally tired, huffing and puffing, trying to tie my shoes. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. This is embarrassing, is what I thought. I can't be doing this. And so I really appreciate that message you just gave, as far as, also with having the faith in what God put you, you got time. I've got time to do stuff. And of course, our body is our temple. And if we don't take care of it, we may not live out the purpose that God had planned for us. And I think that's a perfect opportunity. You said it perfectly.
Well, and like you just mentioned, your daughter got married, right? And we think, as a parent, we want to set that example. When our children are young, we're setting, eating habits, and they're watching you work out. And I always thought when my kids were little that they would watch me. But guess what? They're grown adults now, and they're still watching. So I still have that responsibility to show them that, hey, I'm a grandma now, and it doesn't mean I'm just going to roll over. I'm going to show you guys how you should be in your 50s, and even better, be a better version, right? So I think that not the pressure, but the message of being that good example to our kids and the people around us, it's just that it just feeds your confidence that much more.
Yeah. Well, very good. Is there anything we left out? Anything you really want to focus on? I know we're going to talk a little bit about how people get in touch with you, but any other kind of final points that you want to bring up and get in a little bit of detail with?
Oh my goodness. There's so many great, exciting things happening. I think that obviously there's a movement right now with menopause education. There's some great providers out there really advocating for women's health. I think overall the wellness and longevity, people are sick of corporate healthcare. I agree. I advocate for patients to find a functional-based practitioner that will validate, number one, how they feel. That's the starting point. I advocate for medical providers to step out of corporate healthcare and give the care that patients deserve and give the care that you went to school for, that you want to do good by your patients. You've got so many constraints in corporate healthcare. That could be a whole nother podcast. But I am blessed every single day to be as a business owner and a provider, really living out my mission and values with my patients every single day. I cannot advocate enough for patients and providers and really setting the example. And then when you bring faith into it, there is a movement right now. People are realizing the world we live in, they want that love, they want that peace, they want that true, meaningful purpose. And so I'm not talking about something crazy here. I'm offering something that everybody out there wants, and they are seeking it. So I say this in the respect that if you are in a position as a trainer, a medical provider, a teacher, wherever you may be, there should be no reason you cannot incorporate faith for the patients who want it. And I say that in the sense that I'm not excluding anybody. We see all walks of life in our patient. Our doors are always welcome, and we are very non-judging. But if you want to sit there and have a prayer with me at the end of your visit, by all means, I don't have to look over my shoulder and worry about getting fired. And my patients should never hesitate to ask because they know that they're in this safe place. And people truly want that, and it is really driving them to take care of themselves.
Yeah, that's important information. And the thing that one word that came out to me as you're speaking here is truth. You think about the corporate, how terrible the corporate healthcare is, and they're doing it to pad their pockets. They don't really, we'll just throw a bunch of pills in this, person, and get medicated. They'll be fine. Well, clearly that's not the right way to do it. So when you think about holistic health and functional, training and that kind of things, that you do it the right way. And this is truthfully the best way to do this. To get our body back into good rhythm and shape and feeling as good as we're meant to feel. And so, literally, you think about a couple thousand years ago, what kind of foods were they eating on the earth? They weren't eating processed, I was talking about this, like the health food stores, like, if there's a, in your grocery store, there's a health food section, what does that make the rest of the store? So it's just great food, right? You see what I'm saying? So that's the thing is like, we're just, our hands are tied for the most part, unless you're educated and you know the truth. You know the truth, about the Flexner report. I don't know if you know anything about that, and you kind of go about the whole medical industry and how it was all kind of revamped way back in the day to lie to us. It really was. And it's our responsibility to take control of our own bodies and be responsible for our own health. And sometimes it takes getting outside that box that you've always been grown up into, which I think is horrible because they kind of had our hands tied with the things that they've said, and as far as pharmaceutical and the foods we're eating, and that's fine, no big deal. So there's a lot of untruth out there, and I think when you're talking about faith-based, now you're talking about truth. Okay, let's get into like really what is really important here, and what is going to be truthfully making us a better person.
Yeah, and I think too, everybody's asking me like, what's the next steps? I think, social media and these types of conversations that are out there are really shedding the light for patients to get accurate information, because there's so much information out there and it's really hard to navigate. But, people like you who are standing up to have these conversations and educate everyone, it's going to continue to be a movement. And I think people are really, that screen is going to come down. They're going to realize what we have been taught, like you said. And there is a shift in mindset for sure. Sometimes I've been embarrassed to say I worked in corporate healthcare. The more I realized, and I had the best intentions. I do believe every provider out there, and nurse and doctor and specialist, have the best intentions. But you got, like you said, you got to step out of that box and you got to ask some questions. And for my practice, when I get people off of medicine, I have a bell on the wall that they ring, and we make a big deal about it because they did the work. They don't need that medication, and and then I'm not supporting big pharma, so that's even a better win.
That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah.
The cancer thing, when the treatment's done and they're walking
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's super cool. Again, an accomplishment. Another thing that we always talk about, like do this thing for yourself and enjoy all the compliments along the way. And I think that's an awesome opportunity for you to feel better about yourself. And that's really the kind of the circuit that kind of happens once you get past that milestone in your new health and wellness journey, and then you've had an accomplishment. Great. Okay, let's look for some more. And so I think that's an awesome system, and I think it's a great way to look at it as far as trying to get your health back in shape and get your mind right as well. So let our listeners know where we can get in touch with you. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so I've got my YouTube channel, Health, Hormones, and Faith. I really feel a calling to educate and speak out in any way I can to advocate for patients and education. And then, of course, my Instagram is the Concierge NP. And we are here in Gig Harbor, Washington. I own Gig Harbor Medical Spa and Gig Harbor Concierge Medicine. We have phenomenal providers, all like-minded. We are doing some really great work in our community and really just blessed every single day to be in this space.
Okay, great. What was that? What website do you have? I know that Jason's about to throw that up there.
Yeah, it's gigharbormedicalspa.com. That is our website. You can learn a little bit more about our services that we offer here in the local area. And our newest program, Forged, is a faith-based 12 weeks to wellness program that has built-in gym, chiropractic care, all the extensive blood work, hormones, peptides, oral supplements. I feel like a kid in a candy store that I get to treat these patients, and I'm so excited about it.
Well, that's awesome. That is super cool. And I'm telling you, there's more people like you. We are becoming a big deal, and I think that's going to be the biggest change that this world needs, really. When you think about what we're more so the United States, because we're the sickest country in the world for obvious reasons, right? So, that's a goal I think that I'm trying to achieve. Having this platform to just spread awareness that there's a better way to monitor and capture your health. And as we all age, we're all going to run into some health challenges. Of course, we have to battle those and find truth and understand what the best way to deal with those is. And people like you and me, you're more accredited than I am. Of course, I'm just kind of a messenger. Like, hey, find Sharon, and she'll love you out. But yeah, so I really appreciate your heart, your knowledge, and your faith. And definitely look forward to maybe having you on a show again sometime. Maybe having your own podcast. That's something that would be super cool.
Yes. As soon as I find the time in my day, I am on that. And I love collaborating. So anytime, that would be awesome.
Very cool. I look forward to that as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight on Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. What an awesome show. I think we covered a lot of cool things today, and we're definitely very passionate about what we do and getting everybody on the right track to their good health. So everybody enjoy their Monday evening tonight, and we'll see you guys next Monday night at 5:30 on Zealous Wellness. Everybody have a great night, and I love you all.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.